Hello everyone. I welcome all of you to the 17th session of the course Energy Law. In today's session, we will explore the regional integration in the energy sector. Let us quickly recap what we have discussed in the previous session. In the previous session, we examined energy in the context of WTO law. We started our discussion by examining the question, why energy matters in the WTO discourse. Then we have examined the key WTO agreements and the relevant provisions, followed by energy security and trade restrictions. In today's session, we will examine regional integration in the energy sector. We will start by examining the forms of regional energy integration, followed by drivers of integration. Then we will examine the role of trade agreements in energy governance, followed by some examples in regional integration. In the later part, we will see energy transition and regional pathways. Let us examine the forms of regional energy integration. Regional integration in the energy domain refers to the coordinated effort of neighboring states or regional blocs to harmonize policies, connect infrastructure, and establish shared regulatory and market frameworks for energy production, transmission, trade, and consumption. Unlike purely national energy strategies, regional energy governance recognizes the interconnectedness of energy systems, the need for transboundary cooperation, and the strategic value of collective action in achieving energy security, affordability, and sustainability. Energy systems today are increasingly interdependent due to cross-border electricity interconnections, gas pipelines, shared hydropower resources, and the rising importance of renewable energy corridors and critical mineral supply chains. Regional cooperation therefore becomes essential not only for optimizing resource allocation and enhancing energy trade, but also for managing geopolitical risk, building climate-resilient infrastructure, and accelerating clean energy transition pathways. The various forms of regional energy integration include policy coordination, legal harmonization, market integration, infrastructure interconnection, and institutional frameworks. Let us examine policy coordination. Countries align broad policy directions and energy strategies to ensure mutual benefits and avoid conflicting regulatory frameworks. This may include setting regional renewable energy targets, coordinating fossil fuel subsidy reforms, or establishing harmonized energy efficiency standards. One good example is that of ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, harmonizing regional renewable goals. Let us examine legal harmonization. Member states adopt compatible or uniform legal and regulatory frameworks governing electricity markets, competition policy, environmental standards, grid codes, and investment rules. This reduces regulatory uncertainty and creates a predictable environment for investors and operators. For example, we may refer to the European Union Third Energy Package, creating unified electricity and gas market rules. The next form is that of market integration. We may refer to integration of energy markets through rules that facilitate cross-border trade in electricity or gas, establishment of competitive wholesale markets, and shared pricing mechanisms. Examples include the Southern African Power Pool, Day-Ahead Power Market, and the Nord Pool in Europe, enabling real-time electricity trading. In the context of infrastructure interconnections, we may refer to development of physical infrastructure linking national energy systems such as cross-border grids, oil and gas pipelines, shared storage terminals, interconnectors, LNG terminals, and regional refineries. Examples include India-Bhutan hydropower transmission lines, Trans-ASEAN gas pipelines, or the Europe's ENSO-E grid interconnections. In the context of institutional frameworks, we may refer to creation of regional institutions and regulatory bodies that oversee compliance, manage disputes, coordinate investments, and enable transparent market functioning. Examples include ACER, EU Agency for the Cooperation of Energy Regulators, and the ECOWAS Regional Electricity Regulatory Authority. We can see that these elements combine to transform fragmented national markets into integrated regional ecosystems that encourage competition, improve supply reliability, and build resilience against disruptions. In this context, we may also refer to the recent India-Nepal power sector cooperation. In October 2025, joint venture and shareholders agreements were signed between Power Grid, a Maharatna Central Public Sector Enterprise of India, and the Nepal Electricity Authority. The agreements involve the incorporation of two joint venture entities, one in India and one in Nepal, to develop high-capacity power transmission corridors. Once completed, the projects are expected to substantially enhance electricity trade between India and Nepal, strengthen grid resilience, and promote sustainable growth across the region. Now let us examine the drivers of integration. The drivers are energy security and reliability, economic efficiency and investment attraction, technology sharing and economies of scale, decarbonization and climate targets, managing geopolitical risk and resource dependency. Let us examine energy security and reliability. Shared infrastructure and cross-border power exchanges help stabilize national grids, reduce reliance on single fuel sources, and enhance resilience against supply disruptions. For instance, regional power pools allow states to import electricity during shortages. The next driver is that of economic efficiency and investment attraction. Integrated markets benefit from economies of scale, pooling capital and resources, and attracting foreign investment. Shared transmission networks lower system cost and improve competitiveness, offering better pricing for consumers and industries. The next driver is technology sharing and economies of scale. Regional collaboration accelerates deployment of advanced technologies such as smart grids, hydrogen systems, renewable energy storage, and grid synchronization. Joint research platforms and shared technical standards promote innovation. The next driver is decarbonization and climate targets. Collective climate commitments and regional carbon trading systems support renewable integration, reduce emissions, and enable large-scale clean energy projects such as regional solar corridors or hydropower markets. Regional frameworks often facilitate cross-border renewable energy certificates and climate finance. Another aspect is that of managing geopolitical risk and resource dependency. Nations use regional partnerships to diversify energy sources, reduce dependence on volatile international markets, and counteract geopolitical vulnerabilities. Standard LNG terminals, diversified gas pipelines, and alternative energy corridors enhance strategic security. Regional energy integration is not merely a technical exercise. It is a political, economic, and normative project that reshapes how countries pursue energy sovereignty while embracing interdependence. As global energy systems move toward decarbonization, regional cooperation becomes an indispensable mechanism for mobilizing resources, harmonizing regulations, promoting technological innovation, and safeguarding collective energy futures. Now let us examine the role of trade agreements in energy governance. Regional trade agreements influence energy governance through a series of policy and legal mechanisms that shape market behavior, investor incentives, and state-level regulatory decisions. Regional trade agreements remove tariffs and barriers to energy goods and services. It eliminates tariffs on solar panels, wind turbines, smart grid equipment, and energy-efficient technologies, lowers project cost, and accelerates renewable deployment. Tariff reduction also facilitates regional manufacturing hubs for clean energy technologies, encouraging economies of scale. Regional trade agreements govern foreign investment in energy projects. RTAs often include investment chapters that protect foreign investors, provide fair treatment guarantees, and ensure transparency. This encourages international financing for infrastructure such as cross-border power interconnectors, LNG terminals, and renewable parks. Regional trade agreements standardize regulations and technical norms. Harmonization of grid codes, environmental standards, and energy efficiency regulations enable interoperability of electricity systems and ensure cross-border operational compatibility. It also helps avoid regulatory arbitrage and promotes consumer protection. Regional trade agreements facilitate cross-border energy infrastructure development. Trade frameworks often include provisions for infrastructure cooperation, project facilitation, and regional corridors. These provisions enable large-scale investments in shared pipelines, power pools, transmission lines, port facilities, and energy storage networks. Regional trade agreements also provide for dispute resolution mechanisms. Investor-state dispute settlement or regional dispute resolution bodies ensure legal certainty and reduce project risk. This allows foreign companies to engage in regional energy projects with confidence that investment disputes can be resolved fairly. Regional trade agreements enable renewable energy value chains and industrial cooperation. RTAs promote cross-regional collaboration on the manufacturing, assembly, and supply of renewable energy components such as solar modules, wind turbine blades, battery cells, EV components, and green hydrogen technologies. They support the formation of regional ecosystem for clean technology innovation and production. We can see that regional trade agreements are not merely instruments of market opening. They serve as governance frameworks that support integrated, resilient, and decarbonized regional energy systems. Now let us examine the key legal elements of trade agreements. The key legal elements are tariff liberalization, investment protection provisions, competition policies, environmental and sustainability chapters, technical standards and regulatory harmonization, and energy services liberalization. Let us examine tariff liberalization. Tariff liberalization reduces the cost of importing renewable energy technology and equipment, enhancing adoption of solar, wind, battery systems, and green hydrogen infrastructure. Examples include the European Union's elimination of tariffs on solar components under the European Union-South Korea Free Trade Agreement and the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement facilitating tariff-free trade in energy-related machinery. Investment protection provisions encourage cross-border investments in power plants, transmission lines, gas pipelines, and renewable parks by ensuring fair treatment, protection against expropriation, and predictable rules. For example, we may refer to the Energy Charter Treaty protections for energy investors and the bilateral treaties enabling India-Nepal hydropower investment. Competition policies prevent energy monopolies, enhances open access rules for grids and pipelines, and promote fair market participation by private and foreign actors. We may refer to the European Union Third Energy Package unbundling power and gas sectors, or the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement ensuring non-discriminatory treatment in energy services. Environmental and sustainability chapters integrate decarbonization objectives, support renewable energy targets, enforce environmental standards, and can incentivize carbon pricing mechanisms or carbon border adjustments. We can see that the European Union trade agreements embed the Paris climate commitments. For example, the European Union-Japan Free Trade Agreement. We may also refer to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement Renewable Energy Cooperation Initiatives and the RCEP emphasis on environmental regulatory cooperation in the context of emerging role in clean tech supply chains. Technical standards and regulatory harmonization align energy efficiency requirements, safety regulations, grid codes, emission standards, and hydrogen certification frameworks to facilitate regional power system integration. Examples include the European Union's cross-border grid synchronization under NSOE and the ASEAN harmonization roadmap for power grid standards. Energy services liberalization opens markets to foreign electricity traders, transmission service providers, power sector consultants, renewable technology companies, and energy efficiency firms. In this context, we may refer to the GATT's commitments enabling energy service firms in ASEAN and EU regions. The key legal elements reveal that regional trade agreements act as engines of energy integration by lowering barriers, harmonizing rules, and establishing secure investment environments. They create predictable conditions for the deployment of energy markets, advance technological innovation, and embed sustainability into regional economic planning. In doing so, they help transform regional energy landscape from fragmented national system into interconnected, competitive, and climate-aligned regional energy networks. Now let us examine a few regional integration examples. The first example is that of the European Union. European Union is an advanced model of regional energy governance. It represents a sophisticated system of supranational energy governance, combining market integration, regulatory harmonization, climate commitments, and security policy. Key governance mechanisms include the Energy Union Framework of 2015 and the EU Clean Energy Package of 2019. The Energy Union Framework focuses on market integration, energy security, decarbonization, research and development, and consumer empowerment. The EU Clean Energy Package mandated renewable targets, prosumer rights, and energy efficiency measures. Another important development is that of the emissions trading system, which is the cornerstone of carbon pricing. The second example is that of Association of Southeast Asian Nations. ASEAN prioritizes connectivity and cooperation, but preserves state sovereignty, resulting in gradual integration. The ASEAN institutional architecture includes ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation. ASEAN Center for Energy supports research, and we may also note that the rules are non-binding. Other major initiatives include ASEAN Power Grid, which is a multi-phase grid interconnection plan, and Trans-ASEAN Gas Pipeline, a network for LNG regasification terminals and pipelines. The next example is that of BIMSTEC. BIMSTEC is the Bay of Bengal initiative for multi-sectoral technical and economic cooperation. BIMSTEC is a strategic initiative bridging South Asia and Southeast Asia, focusing on hydropower trade and transmission corridors. Key features include the cross-border power trade agreements increasingly aligned with India's electricity export-import frameworks. We may also note that BIMSTEC Energy Center Kathmandu facilitates cooperation. In this context, we may also refer to India-Bhutan-Bangladesh Hydro Cooperation. Bhutan exports hydroelectricity to India. Bangladesh joins transmission lines to access the surplus hydro. The next example is that of the Southern African Power Pool, SAP. SAP is an advanced regional electricity market in the global south. SAP operates day ahead, intraday, and balances markets. It is a hybrid model which is utility driven with increasing private participation. SAP is also politically backed by the Southern African Development Community, SADC. SAP demonstrates that market-based cross-border electricity trade is workable in developing regions, contingent on grid investment. The next example is that of the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, a free trade agreement which replaced the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. It was signed in 2018, entered into force on 1st of July 2020. USMCA reinforces investment and trade liberalization, but energy remains largely under the national jurisdiction. USMCA characterizes strong cross-border commodity and supply chain flows. We also need to note that USMCA does not provide for binding climate or renewable commitments. At the same time, we can see that the environmental chapter has a cooperation-oriented tone. USMCA aims to foster investment and cross-border reliability by requiring independent regulatory bodies. Though Mexico's recent energy reforms have raised concerns and led the United States and Canada to initiate a dispute settlement process under the agreement. Mexico's prioritization of state-owned firms such as CFE and PFMEX triggered USMCA consultations and investment disputes. Mexico's prioritization of state-owned firms such as CFE and PEMEX triggered USMCA consultations and investment disputes. USMCA is a highly interconnected physical and investment integration, but governance remains decentralized and politically sensitive. The next example is that of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP. RCEP is a free trade agreement between 10 member countries of ASEAN, and 5 of their existing FTA partners, Australia, China, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea. RCEP reinforces Asia's role as world's manufacturing hub for solar batteries and EVs. RCEP promotes foreign investment, trade facilitation, and standards cooperation. RCEP promotes regional energy cooperation by reducing tariffs and non-tariff barriers on energy-related goods and fostering trade, leveraging the diverse energy endowment of its member states. In this context, we may refer to the Asia-Pacific Solar Manufacturing Corridor. ASEAN nations host gigawatt-scale solar factories serving global markets, which is backed by Chinese upstream dominance and Japanese-Korean finance. The specificity of RCEP is such that RCEP supports technology diffusion and manufacturing integration, not joint power markets. The next example is that of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The African Continental Free Trade Area aims to create a unified African market and support industrialization through energy access and cross-border infrastructure. It promotes regional energy integration by fostering more attractive investment environment, harmonizing policies, and creating cross-border electricity markets. The integration aims to reduce energy deficits, leverage Africa's renewable energy resources, and improve energy access by connecting regional power pools and facilitating the flow of electricity across national borders. The agreement also addresses existing challenges like high tariffs and fragmented markets to boost intra-African trade in energy services and infrastructure. Now let us examine the energy transition and regional pathways. Regional integration frameworks increasingly shape the pace, equity, and architecture of energy transitions. By aligning markets, regulations, and infrastructure, regional blocs are redefining how countries move from fossil fuel-based systems to low-carbon, sustainable energy economies. Regional agreements establish shared transition rules and policy instruments, reducing fragmentation and enabling coordinated decarbonization. The first aspect is that of policy and regulatory alignment. Regional agreements establish shared transition rules and policy instruments, reducing fragmentation and enabling coordinated decarbonization. Key dimensions are regional renewable energy targets and policy roadmaps, linked or harmonized carbon markets, common standards and certification systems, and power market rules. Policy and regulatory alignment is extremely significant as shared rules lower transaction cost, create predictable investment climates, and facilitate technology deployment at scale. The next aspect is that of cross-border renewable deployment. Regional cooperation accelerates deployment by pooling natural resource strengths, sharing balancing capacity, and spreading risk. Examples include solar and wind corridors, regional power hubs, or grid-scale storage collaborations. Cross-border renewable trade helps handle variability, increases energy reliability, and creates economies of scale in supply chains. The next aspect is that of green finance mechanisms. Regional finance cooperation is crucial for funding large-scale clean energy investments. We may refer to the role of multilateral and regional development banks such as the European Investment Bank, Asian Development Bank, or the African Development Bank. There are blended finance platforms such as ASEAN Catalytic Green Finance Facility and the EU Just Transition Mechanism for coal-dependent regions. Green finance mechanisms reduce the cost of capital, mobilize private capital, and support risk sharing for innovative clean energy technologies. The next aspect is that of just energy transition and social dimension. Regional frameworks increasingly incorporate justice, inclusiveness, and equitable transition principles. Key priorities are energy access and poverty reduction, fair labor transitions, technology transfer, and capacity building. From the point of view of energy access and poverty reduction, we may refer to SAB's expanding grid access to rural communities. From the point of view of fair labor transitions, we may refer to the European Union Just Transition Fund supporting workers in coal regions. From the point of view of technology transfer and capacity building, we may refer to Africa Climate Smart Agriculture and Energy Training Programs. Considering social dimensions is of utmost significance. Energy transitions must be socially sustainable, minimizing disruptions to vulnerable communities while ensuring broad access to emerging opportunities. Now let us examine the challenges and constraints in regional energy integration and transition pathways. Despite the strategic promise of regional energy cooperation, progress remains uneven and constrained by complex political, legal, economic, technological, and social barriers. These challenges shape the feasibility, pace, and equity of integration efforts across different regions. Let us examine the political and geopolitical challenges. Regional energy cooperation frequently encounters sovereignty sensitivities, trust deficits, and shifting geopolitical alignments. States may resist ceding control over energy pricing, market access, or security-sensitive infrastructure. Geopolitical rivalries such as Russia-EU tensions, India-China frictions affecting BIMSTEC or RCEP dynamics can complicate interconnection planning and energy diplomacy. We may also note that changes in domestic political leadership can reverse commitments. For example, Mexico's energy nationalism under USMCA or Brexit implications for the EU energy market. Now let us examine the economic and financial challenges. The capital-intensive nature of cross-border transmission, storage systems, LNG terminals, and renewable mega projects demands stable financing frameworks and long-term investor confidence. Many regions face fiscal constraints, currency volatility, and limited access to concessional financing. Developing regions such as Africa or South Asia struggle with bankability of large infrastructure due to perceived political risk, creditworthiness issues, and underdeveloped regional capital markets. Unequal economic development between member states can lead to distributional tensions over cost sharing and benefit allocation. Now let us examine the legal and regulatory challenges. Harmonizing regulatory frameworks across sovereign jurisdictions remains one of the most complex barriers. Divergent energy market rules, tariff methodologies, investment protections, environmental standards, and competition law regimes hinder seamless cross-border market operation. Dispute settlement mechanisms under RTAs may be insufficient to address energy-specific regulatory disputes, especially when state-owned enterprises dominate. We may recall that Mexico's electricity reforms were challenged by the United States and Canada under USMCA. Now let us examine the technological and infrastructure challenges. Effective regional energy markets require synchronized grids, interoperable digital systems, flexible balancing capacity, and resilience to cyber threats. Now let us examine the technological and infrastructure challenges. Effective regional energy markets require synchronized grids, interoperable digital systems, flexible balancing capacity, and resilience to cyber threats. Many global south regions face aging infrastructure, insufficient interconnection capacity, and limited digital monitoring systems. Large renewable flows require advanced regional balancing mechanisms, transmission upgrades, and storage solutions, which are still evolving in regions like ASEAN and African Continental Free Trade Area. Physical bottlenecks such as grid congestion in the European Union or hydropower variability in Southern Africa affect reliability and trade flows. Now let us examine the challenges related to social and distributive justice. Public acceptance of cross-border energy projects can be undermined by community displacement issues, environmental concerns, and perceptions of unequal benefit sharing. Energy transition also creates winners and losers. Fossil fuel dependent regions and workers may resist decarbonization efforts without adequate support. Regional frameworks must therefore confront equity in energy access, affordability, and technology diffusion, particularly salient in Africa and India-centric South Asian corridors. Another aspect is that of effective stakeholder participation. Inadequate stakeholder participation in decision making can erode legitimacy and create governance gaps. Regional energy governance operates at the intersection of domestic sovereignty and cross-border interdependence. Progress depends not only on technical capabilities and financing, but also on deep political trust, regulatory convergence, and equitable socio-economic design. Let us conclude our discussion. Regional integration is now central to energy governance, shaping how countries trade power, attract investment, and align regulations. By reducing barriers and fostering shared infrastructure and standards, regional trade frameworks support energy security and accelerate the shift to clean energy. While approaches differ across regions, these partnerships increasingly determine the pace and direction of market development and the global energy transition. Regional cooperation, therefore, is not peripheral but foundational, linking national strategies to collective resilience, innovation, and sustainable growth in the evolving global energy landscape. Let's see what's coming up. The next session will explore the evolving role of energy-related issues in WTO dispute settlement, with a focus on selected landmark cases and emerging challenges at the intersection of trade and energy governance. Thank you.